replication study. My name is Monique Beimer. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
How should we do that? How should we say that?
I guess it doesn't matter if you
don't
see us, right?
And then just either everybody can introduce themselves or Monique can just introduce everyone.
I think that's fine, just to have the continuity and have it be faster.
Yeah. Monique,
I'll introduce everyone. Okay. Okay, so we're Central Group 2, and this is our replication project. We chose the study Increasing Physical Activity of Young Adults with Autism Spectrum Disorders by Kate Lalonde, Brian McNeil, Laura Wolf-Eversole, Stephen Ratgotzi, and Alan Poling. My name is Monique Beimer. We also have Ashley Bledworth, sorry, Ashley Bledworth, Gina Bolin, Jacqueline Hildebrand, Stephanie Pilsner, and Kyla Davis. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the study is a replication of increasing physical activity in young adults with autism spectrum disorders. The original study assessed the effectiveness of goal setting and reinforcement on the number of steps taken per day by young adults on the autism spectrum. This replication used a multiple baseline across participants design to determine if a functional relationship exists between goal setting and reinforcement on the number of steps taken per day in 6 female graduate level participants. Each participant measured their steps taken during the first 6 hours of the day using pedometers, mobile apps, or smartwatches during each phase of the study.
Okay. Multiple studies have been conducted on increasing physical activity in children and adults by measuring steps taken using a pedometer or other step tracking devices as a measurement system. Participants have varied from children to adults, neurotypical to people or individuals with disabilities. IOA has been measured in all cases, either per session or percentage of sessions. Total number of steps have been compared between observers. And in one case, multiple Fitbits were worn by the individual and compared at the end of the session. The methods are during baseline. Once baseline is stable, treatment begins, and then a withdrawal of intervention to document progress. Social validity surveys have been conducted in some of the studies. Limitations included loss of participants, either from moving out of town or no longer participating in the study. Cost of tracking devices, some were, as you know, were less expensive of $10 to $15, and some were more expensive, the Fitbits costing hundreds of dollars. And there are also digital glitches in some of the measurement systems where data was lost. Overall results demonstrated effective intervention. And I'll actually write something so that I can have something to say.
Okay, so the methods for this study, participants in the study included 6 females. The ages ranged from 25 to 40. All participants were master level students at Ball State and were enrolled in SPCE 611. All the participants signed up at random based on their time zones. All members were located in different states. All the participants were also located in Central Time Zone except one member who was located in Pacific Time Zone. Settings included anywhere the participants went for the first 6 hours of being awake. Specific settings include the participants' home, their work, a running trail, and the community, such as a grocery store where we would run errands. Materials for the study included a computer or smartphone to share documents, a Google document sheet for tracking steps, a camera for calculating IOA, and any step tracking device. Devices include an iPhone Health app application, a TomTom watch, Fitbit, and a pedometer. Each session, participants recorded the number of steps on a shared Google Doc. Participants had access to email and text messaging to share pictures or screenshots taken of data with a partner for IOA. For the behavior definition, Walking is defined as bending and moving the legs in such a manner where a foot or shoe makes alternating contact with the floor or ground and the body travels forward, with or without the accompaniment of arms swaying forward and backward. For example, an individual stands and moves her legs so that her feet make alternating contact with the floor and propel her forward toward the door at a moderate pace. A non-example would be an individual standing, bending her legs, and propelling herself into the air. Her feet make contact with the floor at the same time upon landing. Jumping and walking in place, not including the use of a treadmill, are also non-examples.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. For data collection, participants collected their step count each day using either a pedometer, smartwatch, or smartphone app for the first 6 hours of being awake. These steps were entered into a shared Excel spreadsheet and checked randomly for inter-observer agreement. This means that screenshots of the pedometer reading were sent to other participants and checked against the data entered into the spreadsheet for accuracy. Participants also completed accuracy checks for the step goals. So participants checked the percentage increase for step goals for each intervention phase, randomly paired up together. This design, our replication design and the original design are a multiple baseline across participants design. For our replication, each participant began baseline 1 on the same day and entered intervention on different days based on when baseline 1 was considered stable within 500 steps.
Our replication had 4 phases, just as the original study did. During the baseline phase, participants either did not access the display for their current step count on their wearable pedometer, such as a Fitbit device, or closed their step tracking application on their mobile device. Specifically, one participant in the group utilized Health for iPhone during the replication. These actions kept participants from viewing the number of steps taken on session days during the first 6 hours the group member was awake and active. At the end of the 6-hour session, participants recorded the number of steps taken in the designated Google Sheet and either removed their pedometer or closed their step tracking application. During the goal setting and reinforcement phase, each member determined an initial step count goal by finding the average number of steps taken during the baseline phase and adding 10%. If participants reached or exceeded their 6-hour goal, then a small and relatively inexpensive reinforcer was received at the end of the day. Some of the group's reinforcers included a piece of candy, a soda, applying a facial mask, and a self-pedicure. Goals were increased by 10% after the second consecutive session the step count goal was met or exceeded. However, goals remained the same and no reinforcer was provided when a participant failed to reach the goal. Participants also received a reinforcer at the end of the week if they recorded their goals and step counts in the shared Google Sheet for each session. The second baseline phase was identical to the initial baseline, with the exception that participants were allowed to view the display on their pedometer and keep their health application open if they wanted during the 6-hour session. Goals were not set and reinforcement was not provided during the phase. The second treatment phase was similar to the initial treatment phase. However, a daily goal of the highest step count recorded during the initial treatment phase was implemented for each participant. This goal was selected due to each participant demonstrating the ability to meet the goal. The step goal was not increased when a participant met or exceeded her goal for 2 consecutive sessions, but reinforcement was provided and withheld as in the initial treatment phase. Participants measured IOA by taking photographs or screenshots of the data yielded by her pedometer. That is, participants either took a picture of the display of the wearable pedometer or took a screenshot of Health's pedometer information. Participants were randomly paired and observed the number of steps documented in the photographs. The partner compared data entered into the Google Sheet with the data in the photographs. The results of this comparison were then submitted to the original participant who calculated the IOA data. IOA was calculated using total count IOA, where the lower number of steps recorded was divided by the higher number of steps recorded. This number was then multiplied by 100 to obtain the percentage of IOA. Participants measured IOA for 30% of sessions throughout each phase. Results for inter-observer agreement data was at 100% across all phases for all participants.
Okay, for my graph, I had baseline starting in the thousands, and then I moved on into intervention. I used hard candy as my reinforcer, and it increased my goal significantly. Then I went back to baseline and subsequently went back to intervention. However, on the last day, I did get sick and no sleep. So my steps significantly decreased.
Okay, I was the second participant in the replication study to enter the first intervention phase after my baseline was stable for several consecutive sessions. I think that the data demonstrates a functional relation between the goal setting and reinforcement intervention and my steps within a 6-hour period. During both intervention phases, I exceeded my goals. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, I was unable to continue intervention for a long enough period to have my goals dramatically increase. So I was unable to get anywhere near the 10,000 terminal goal.
So as you can see here, it looks like I have a good amount of baseline data points that are all relatively stable. This was due to us all staggering our start to intervention as the original study did, so it took longer for it to be my turn to start the intervention. In the first treatment phase, I either met or exceeded my daily goal, and then when I returned to baseline, the data doesn't really represent a functional relationship. This was also due to us choosing to take data on the weekend because of time constraints. The weekend fell in my second baseline phase, and I am much more active during the weekends than during the week. For the return to treatment, as you can see, I met one of my goals but did not meet the other goal for the 2 data days.
This is my graph for my baseline and intervention phases. As you can see, I have a fairly stable baseline phase. But however, as Jacqueline mentioned earlier, we had to make sure that none of us started intervention on the same date. So that's why I have a lot of baseline phase. For me, my first criterion goal for my step count and intervention phase was successful. I was able to meet that goal. And as you can see, for my second criterion, I was not able to meet that goal. Partly due to the change in my work schedule. I was less active with my clients and more sitting in front of the computer writing programs and goals and things. So that is more reinforcing for me to finish my work and do those things than to earn a piece of candy, which was my reinforcer. And then back to baseline phase, it kind of was similar to my first baseline phase. Then I was not able to meet my goal again for the reintroduction of the intervention. So for me, there's not a functional relationship between this intervention and my step count.
This is my results. During baseline, it varied in the beginning due to my work schedule, and then it stabled out toward the end where I started intervention. I was able to meet the criteria and return back to baseline. Unfortunately, my baseline also fell over the weekend where I am more active, and then followed treatment again where I was able to maintain my goal.
I just put my graph on there, so it's not going to show up, but I'll talk about it, and then it'll load. Okay. So for my results, my baseline is pretty long because I was the last participant to start intervention. My baseline is very variable. It goes from about 2,000 steps to about 9,000. Once I hit intervention, I'm still very variable, and my levels range a lot. And then as I go back into baseline, I'm kind of in the same level of around 9,000 steps. And then as I return back to baseline, it falls pretty quickly because the last day of my intervention, I was sick. So I was laying down all day. So my steps had decreased. There's definitely not a functional relationship between my baseline and the intervention of tracking my steps.
Okay, so to record our treatment integrity, each group member recorded their step data in a shared Google Sheets log after a 6-hour session. This assisted in keeping each group member accountable for their step count and allowed each group member ownership of their own data. This also replicated the treatment integrity portion of the original study. Participants recorded their data in the Google Sheet daily and chose a reinforcer at the end of each session, if applicable. The group members also shared with other group members what reinforcement, if any, was consumed on that day via text message, and also recorded the reinforcer on the Google document. Participants also calculated and entered their daily goal, which was reviewed with another participant to ensure the calculation was correct. Overall, most of the steps were recorded appropriately. The only error we encountered was when a participant broke her phone and step counter halfway through the session. To determine whether participants wore their pedometer devices throughout the session, each member of the group sent a photograph or screenshot of their daily step results for 30% of days when data was collected. The treatment integrity for 5 group members was 100%, and for 1 group member who broke her phone was 94%.
For social validity, a survey was conducted to indicate the effectiveness of the acceptability of using a pedometer to increase physical activity and measure satisfaction from participants in the goal setting and reinforcement intervention phase. According to Cooper, Heron, and Heward, social validity refers to the extent to which target behaviors are appropriate, intervention procedures are acceptable, and important and significant changes in target and collateral behaviors are produced. This survey was distributed to participants at the end of the replication study, imitating the original study. Participants were also asked identical questions from the original study. However, instead of yes and no answers for the first 2 questions, a 7-point Likert scale was used throughout the questionnaire. 6 questions were presented to determine key components of the study and support the social validity for the graduate level participants, rather than just students with disabilities and teachers or facilitators. The participants in the replication responded to a total of 11 questions. So as the results of the social validity survey indicated, the participants expressed an overall positive experience during the replication of the original study. The questions from the article and for graduate level students indicated that the participants found the experiment to be a socially acceptable form of obtaining physical exercise with the use of a pedometer. Excuse me. And the results and the conclusion indicated there was variation in data from the original study. The replication process took on a new form due to the limitations that are reported below. There were many differences between the current study and the original study. For example, differences in specific data collecting devices used, differences in the time of day data was collected, and the reinforcers used during intervention. In the following sections, we will discuss more about the limitations. However, the results do show that overall, during baseline and intervention, it was pretty consistent with the original study. We chose to replicate this study for the benefit that physical exercise has on us physically and psychologically. We didn't meet the 1,000-step criterion. However, our results did generally have a distinct functional relation. I'm just going to stop there because, I could go on more. But I want to move on. I'm going to condense that.
We're only at like 19 minutes, guys, so don't worry about condensing.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. I was talking and it was muted. I said, yeah, you're right. We're only at 20 minutes and mine's the last one. So I don't know when everyone gets their actual stuff in there if it will be too long. But anyway, I'll go ahead. Our group discovered a considerable amount of limitations while in the process of replicating the original study. I put them into a table comparing the two studies to make it easier to understand. In the original study, the participants consisted of young adults, 3 males and 1 female, who attended a young adult educational program and were diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Data was collected Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Activities with the program were flexible and tailored to meet the students' needs. They were offered a considerable amount of free time, and it was easy for the students to walk around the school grounds during their day. Our replication consisted of 6 females without autism spectrum disorder and an online master's level education program across states and time zones. Many members of the group work full-time and spend much of the day sitting at a desk with infrequent access to breaks, to walk, or to exercise. Due to this, most participants in the current replication were unable to reach the original study's second intervention goal of 10,000 steps. Work schedules prevented the group from replicating the exact time frame for data collection. Because of this, each participant chose a 6-hour time slot starting from the time they woke up in the morning because of their varying schedules. Another variation from the original study involved the setting in which data was collected. While the original participants collected data during their school day, replication participants collected data in a variety of settings like work, driving, housework, coursework, running errands, spending time with family and friends, or caring for family members. It was the group's intention to only collect data on the weekdays, as the original study did. However, due to time constraints, we collected data on one weekend, which skewed and increased several participants' data. Another large limitation in replicating the original study was the varying types of pedometers that we used. In the original study, each participant used the same model of pedometer, the Zip wireless activity trackers by Fitbit. However, our replication group used a variety of pedometers like different Fitbit models, Garmin watches, and the iPhone's health application. We identified an important limitation to the replication of the study towards the end of the project. The original study was carried out over a 42-day period, whereas we had approximately 20 days to complete all the phases of the study, and therefore many of our phases had fewer data points than provided in the original study. Participants in the replication began recording baseline on the same day and started intervention phases on different days. One participant had an increasing trend before transitioning into intervention due to these time constraints. In the original study, the participants used a black piece of electrical tape to cover the display on their pedometer to prevent young adults from reading the step count, but we felt that our replication had no need for the black electrical tape to cover the number of steps taken during baseline, and we all agreed to refrain from checking the steps on our devices. One participant within the replication group who was tracking her steps on her phone broke her phone during a session, as mentioned previously. Therefore, her data was not accurate for that session. And the last limitation we found was that in the original study used facilitators, but in the replication, we, the participants, acted as our own facilitators. And that's all she wrote. Should we say something at the end that's like, thank you for watching our presentation, this is the end?
Or should I put references on the last slide, maybe?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and we should say something how, like, it's time, like, we can open up for questions from, like, the professor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can say that since I'm the last one. I can say that concludes our presentation. Now we'll hear from our professor if she has any questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was our time?
Hold on, sorry.
Like 25 minutes.
Yeah, 25 minutes.
But once I write my script, it'll easily be 5 minutes long.
Okay.
If not, I need it to be longer. I mean, the study, my part was about 4 pages. So if I had to read all of it, I could. So we had the time, but I can summarize it as well.
I want to clarify, like, is there a functional relation? Because for me, there isn't.
I was really concerned about that. Like when Gina was talking about the results and conclusions, I'm like, we kind of have to say whether or not we found there was a functional relation, like if this intervention is effective for our population or not.
So I want you to look. So I thought about that too when she was saying that. What do y'all think about my graph? I don't really think that there's that much of a functional relationship, but I'm going to ask you guys.
I would think that there would not be.
No, your data is too variable. Like it's all over the place.
I agree. So
I'm the only one that showed a functional relationship.
you had one. Someone else did too, I thought. I did
Definitely not me.
Not me. I didn't even meet the goal.
not. Okay, so I would say no.
Monique and Stephanie, which one of you started first?
I think because of the time, we might have started on the same day.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just putting the phase line, like the phase change lines in for the multiple baseline. I was like, wait a minute. So I just wanted to double check. That's fine.
There was something. Oh, Stephanie, is this phase change?
Yeah, it's in the wrong spot.
Okay. And
I'm
then
gonna fix mine too.
I noticed something on Ashley's slide. It's supposed to say 10. This one. It's supposed to say 10%, but it says exclamation point 0.
Whoops, my bad. My bad. That's what happens when I'm typing quickly.
No, that's fine. Sometimes I don't notice things until like it's in presenter view, and then
For sure.
it's easier to see.
I need to change mine too, so no worries, woman. I'm almost done with this though.
Cool. So I don't think that went that bad, especially since like not everyone's scripts were in. So something that would help me know when to do the slide is like in your script, if you could say, like if you talk during multiple slides, if you could say like put like a space and then put like transition slide here, then I could follow along on the paper and know exactly when you want me to turn the slide.
Yeah.
Can you see our faces, Jacqueline? No. Okay. Because I just made a note for myself that like when we put it, because I can see everybody right now as well as the slide, and I was saying if when we put it on mute, that's a good like thing, but if you can't see us, then that doesn't make sense for you.
Yeah. Sorry, that's a good idea, but
No, I mean we got to do what we got to do. Yeah.
So will the recording show our faces, or will the recording just show the slides?
I think it should just show the slides. Yeah, so now you're all showing, but
The reason I asked was because I know she said don't really read from the script, but if our faces aren't showing,
right.
it's a lot easier to read from a script.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast. I don't think that stops the conversation,
Okay.
hopefully.